One of the things I love to do in my silversmithing is to repurpose or recycle old solid sterling silver. When my granddad died, we found a battered old cigarette case in amongst his belongings. It was pretty bent and buckled. It was never going to be used again, and it had this gorgeous embossed pattern on the outside, and I cut it up and made myself and my sisters some wearable jewellery from it. This is a pair of earrings from that cigarette case. What I love about it is it's sort of got this lovely old vintage patina and a gorgeous embossed, very fine sort of Art Deco pattern on there. So I got a couple of old cigarette cases off eBay recently, and as you can see, they've both got a lovely delicate embossed pattern on. This one in particular is pretty battered, and I'm going to repurpose them into some jewellery. So I'm going to use this one to start with. So the first thing I'm going to do is heat it with my solder torch, get it really red hot to soften it so that I can then saw off the edges and begin to make some jewellery. So as this is such a large piece of silver to anneal, I need to use my fatter, bigger nozzle on my solder torch, which gives a much hotter, bigger flame. So what you're looking for when you anneal is that glowing red, and then you need to maintain that glowing red for perhaps 30 seconds, and that softens the silver and makes it easier to work with. So I've quenched it in water, and now I'm just sort of deconstructing it without trying to mark it too much. So I've managed to take the clasp off. I think that's silver, but I'm not sure. And now I'm taking off this edge, a bit like undoing a sardine can. So I've taken off as much of the sort of edge pieces as I can. I think they're all silver. I won't find out until I melt them all down later on. But the main bits that I want are obviously the big flat pieces. You can see how soft that annealing has made the metal. It literally just bends really easily. So I'm just gradually flattening it out. What I'm going to have to do is saw the two pieces apart, because I can't manage to break that. So I'm just going to get my jeweller's saw out and saw through the hinges. So I've taken off as much as the bits that I don't want off. I'm trying to flatten it as much as I can in order to put it into my disc punch to cut some circles. So using my rawhide hammer, which doesn't damage the pattern, just flattening it down. And the other thing I've done, because this pattern's got stripes on it and I want the circles to be from the bits between the stripes, I've actually drawn on the back where the stripes are so that I don't inadvertently cut the discs in the wrong place. So now I'm going to cut some discs using my disc cutter. So I'm going to cut some 16mm discs, because when they're domed they'll be smaller because of the curve. Pattern side down so that you don't mark the pattern while you're punching. That's good. tighten it down. Using my jobbing hammer, not one of my nice jeweller's hammers. And there's my disc with that lovely pattern. So I'm going to cut a few more of these. So I've got a few discs cut here with that lovely pattern on. Now I'm going to dome them using my doming block, but I don't want to spoil the pattern when I'm punching down on them. So I'm going to use some double-sided sellotape and a piece of latex rubber glove, which I'm going to stick to the back of the beads, back of the discs, to protect them while I'm punching down on them. Bit fiddly this. So I'll just show you with the one. So this is my doming block. So I've got the disc in my doming block. I'm going to start with a slightly shallower dome than I ultimately want, and then one of my wooden soft dapping punches, just to get a gentle curve going before I move to a smaller hole and my metal punch. The metal punch will give a much more defined shape. So that's given me a lovely curve. And when I peel off the sticky tape, you can see that the pattern is undamaged. So now I just need to sand that sharp edge where we cut it in the disc cutter. I'm using a P240 sandpaper just to take the bottom off, and then I shall move to something a bit finer. That's a P1200. And then to my micromesh sandpapers, working through the grades. These are more like a sandpaper coated fabric. And then I want to just, the edge is quite sharp, so I'm just going to work round, turning it 1 millimetre at a time and soften that edge. And then lastly, with my nail buffer, which I use all the time in silversmithing, I'm just going to, again, work around, just soften that edge. And that's now ready to punch a little hole in and attach a bead and an ear hook. So I'm going to do the same with the other one now. So now I need to punch a hole to hang the ear hook from, and I'm going to mark it with my Sharpie because I want to make sure I get the pattern lined up horizontally. So it's about there. And then do the same with the other one. So there's a couple of ways I could make the hole. One is using this wonderful little hole punch from Euro Tool. However, because I've already domed it, that might buckle the dome. So the other way is to use an Archimedes drill, which is what I'm going to do on this occasion. I'm going to put some double-sided sellotape back on the back so that I can just stop it turning round while I'm drilling. And then I'm just going to, it didn't take long to get through because it's quite thin, and then I'm just going to stretch that hole a little bit with my needle file. And that's ready now to attach to the rest of the earring. So all that's left to do now is assemble the pieces. I've got my disc, I've got some 0.5mm sterling silver wire to join the pieces together. I've got a 5mm sterling silver bead and ear hooks that I prepared earlier. So with my round nose pliers, I'm going to form a loop, thread on my disc, and then holding it with my flat nose pliers, I'm just going to informally wrap that a few times around the wire. It's very soft wire, so you can just do it with your fingers. Snip off the end. And just tuck that sharp end in. Then we're going to thread on the bead and then wire wrap the other end through the ear wire. This is very fiddly to demonstrate on film, I don't know why. Again, wrap that round a few times to keep the bead in place. Trim off the end. Tuck the end, the sharp end in. And then we need to make sure that it's all hanging the right way. That's not too bad. So here's the pair before they've been polished up. So they're a little bit dull at the moment compared to the one from my grandfather's cigarette case, which is all lovely and shiny. So these need to go in the pickle pot to take off the tarnish, and then they're going into my tumbler for a few hours, which will strengthen the silver, make it hard, and also polish it up. So these are the earrings. Now they've come out of the tumbler. They were in there for about 4 hours. I've oxidised one with liver of sulphur because I just want to show you how that can emphasise the texture. And this one is not oxidised, but I'm going to polish them both up with some Triplylium Rouge shortly. So these are the earrings finished. The one on the left is the oxidised one, and the one on the right has not been oxidised, so there's not a lot of difference, but it's just lovely the way the crevices and the dints hold the patina and give it an aged look.